Welcome to this new episode of Renegade Talk with the amazing artist and independent musician Wynand. Hi.
Brilliant pronunciation. Hello, Lisa. I'm happy to be here. It's nice to see you. Um,
Yeah, it's nice to
yeah,
see
how are you
you.
doing? How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's a beautiful winter day here in France. So we've had extremely cold weather for the past few days, but today is a really sunny day. I suppose you're
Mm.
not very familiar with snow where you are.
I've never even touched the stuff. Uh,
Oh, really?
but
Oh, you've never seen
never.
snow?
I've seen snow because we get snow on the mountains, like on the
Okay.
on the peaks,
Yeah.
but I've never actually physically. I always picture it as like the inside of a freezer. There's like little like that. That's like my closest association with snow. Do you ever go out and like build snowmen or
Oh, yeah, sure.
snowballs?
Yeah, of course. Well, we don't have a lot of snow where I am in France. It's not a part of France where, we get a whole lot of snow. We maybe get a few days of snow in the winter. But I grew up in Switzerland and we used to have a bunch of snow there in the winter. So we had like minus 15 degrees Celsius and a lot of snow. So we would go and sledge with my brother all the time and go and ski
Wow.
and everything. Yeah. So
I
I
don't
really
think I've ever experienced that kind of cold. That's hectic.
well,
-10.
actually, if it's when it's a dry type of cold, then it's okay
Mm.
because I think when you get really cold is when it's humid and that it goes through the clothes and you get
Uh,
like a little wet. Then it's really cold.
it
But
sits on your skin.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But I remember one day we went out when we were in Canada in the winter, and I had my hair that froze because it was so cold. So yeah, it's really amazing.
Wow. Wow.
So you are in a part of the world with no snow or no minus
Very
degrees.
little. Yeah, it's actually summer right now. It's very nice. I just came back from holiday with the family. We went to the beach. We went on hikes. The sun is shining.
So
Everything
you're in
is
South
lovely.
Africa right
I'm in South Africa, so I'm from South Africa. Well, technically, I was born in South Africa, and then I moved to Namibia for a few years, and I was
now.
homeschooled on a farm, a
Okay.
guest farm. So, and then I moved to a town called Stellenbosch, which is quite close to Cape Town,
Yeah.
where I live now. So yeah, I've been all over the place. I actually counted the other day. I've moved in my life. I've moved 27 times, and I'm 33 years old now. So
Oh,
it's a
it's
lot of
that's
you know.
incredible because most of the time of all the people I know, I'm always the one who's moved the most because the move I did in the house I'm in right now, I think was my 18th move. And usually when I tell people that they're like, "What? 18 moves?" But you beat me.
Uh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's not something I'm particularly proud of, but it is interesting because it's gotten to a point, and I think since I've been doing it as like a kid as well. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. Um, it's gotten to this point where I'm just so used to it that if I'm living in a place for more than a year, I start getting like itchy, and I'm like,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I
it's time for
understand.
a new start. Because I've
Yeah,
never
I
really had a
understand that.
home. Mm,
It is very it's and I think when you have like a kind of an international feeling and sense when you've moved around different countries and you have sense of different cultures, then somehow it's not like some of my friends who have lived in the same place in the same region for their entire life and who
mm,
are like two villages away from all of their family or in the same village as their entire family sometimes, and they've never moved and they're 35 or something. And for me, it's impossible to imagine because I've moved from country to country when I was a kid. And then as an adult, I moved so many times too. And I can really understand the feeling like you can feel really, yourself in a space and or make yourself at home. But it
mm.
doesn't, it's not necessarily your forever home. and you always have in mind, maybe something will arise, and maybe you have a new adventure somewhere and you'll leave. And it always makes it, also makes it somehow easier to um to go new places and to try things out, because you're not afraid to just pack up your stuff and go somewhere else. So it's
Yeah,
also it's also positive.
it's not as unknown to you. It's not like stepping into the big unknown. You've been there before. You've done it. I Yeah, it is interesting because well, I have 27 moves, but I think you've got more flyer miles under the belt. So like you've
Oh,
definitely
maybe.
gotten more distance. If you've been living on different continents. So
Oh
which
no, not
continents have
different
you?
continents, just different
Oh,
countries.
okay.
Yeah,
Countries. Okay, okay. Gotcha.
but always
Cool.
in Europe. So I
Always in
have,
Europe. Okay.
yeah, I haven't moved. I was born in Germany, and then I grew up in England, and then we moved from England to Switzerland, and I moved from Switzerland to France. Where so did you were those the only two countries you lived in, or have you lived elsewhere?
No, it's just been these two. I've traveled a little bit for work. Like I've been to Greece just for like a week, um, purely on work because I work in the film industry and I'm like a sound guy and an assistant camera guy.
Okay.
And I have someone that I work with who's like a documentary filmmaker, and he gets all these weird jobs across the ocean. And yeah, so I went to Greece with him, which was really cool. It was cool to see Athens. We got
Oh
had
yeah.
one day to like explore, and it was like mind blowing to me, just to see the difference in culture, and it's like a different city that I'm used to. You know, I'm used to Cape Town, and there's a certain energy and vibe here
Hmm.
that's very like home to me. But yeah, that's just a completely different environment,
Mm.
and that was cool to see. That was cool to see. But yeah, other than that, I've only lived in South Africa and Namibia. I grew up in Namibia on a guest farm that was like on the Fish River Canyon. So
Okay.
the Fish River is like, you got the Grand Canyon in America, which is
Yeah.
like the biggest canyon in the world.
Yeah.
Well, the Fish River is the second biggest canyon in the world.
Okay.
So
Right.
it's like second to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had like a guest lodge there. So I think from a young age, I was homeschooled on this farm, and
Okay.
from a young age, I was exposed to a lot of people from different parts of the world. So I
Yeah.
think that kind of gave me a bit of an interesting uh, twist in the mind.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
And an openness, probably also being
yeah,
open, because it's, if you're confronted with different cultures and religions and beliefs, from
mm,
different people from a young age, it really opens your mind to the world, and to
yeah,
the fact that we can all have different opinions and see things in different lights. So that was
yeah.
also my experience, because my father, being a physicist, he has always brought people from all over the world home to eat, and I've always experienced multicultural surroundings. So
Mm,
it's always been this environment where, wherever you're from and whatever your beliefs are, you can speak your mind and we can have a conversation. And I think that's something that's sometimes lacking a bit today, is the fact that
yeah.
people are not always willing to confront themselves to, you know, different people and to different cultures.
Oh
And
yeah, just to like stay open and open minded and ask questions and be curious. And yeah, it is definitely something. Um, I mean, I think we do live in an age where there's more information available to us now than there's ever been in
mm,
the history of time. Um, but it's funny because we're also more isolated now than we've ever been.
oh
So
yeah.
it's a weird contrast that we have, because it's also like um, just to get back to the like open mindedness.
Mm,
Um, I think the internet is a very can be a very lovely place, but it can also be a very dangerous place because you can easily fall into like the trap of confirmation bias.
Oh,
You know, it's like if you
I was thinking about that exactly. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
sure.
it's like if you're just if you're stuck in one way, and uh, the algorithm sees that, okay, this is the kind of content you like, so I'm just going to keep feeding you this.
Yeah.
And you can prove anything right or wrong on the internet nowadays. Like you can
Oh,
just
of
type in
course.
Google, is
Oh,
this
yeah.
wrong to do this? See, I told you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Everyone's right.
Mm,
That's somehow a problem too. And I was talking, I did an interview with Ricochet, who is a graffiti artist from
mm,
the US. And we had this conversation about growing up in the 90s and how that was different to what it is now, and how we see how relationships are built differently because we both have kids, and so we see also how they build their relationships and how that is a
mm,
bit different of what we experience. And he said, because I was asking him, how did it come to that you became a graffiti artist, and how were you introduced to that world, because it's a very culturally specific world in his town, and it had a lot to do with rap and breakdance and everything.
is he from the US?
Yeah, yeah. and
Okay, okay.
and so he said it was really the passing on of knowledge and information inside the group. So he was with
Mm,
friends, and some of his friends were good at graffiti and they would show him how to do it, and other friends were
mm.
break dancers and they would show him the moves.
And
And
obviously,
so
they would
he,
have to learn from other friends. It's like
exactly.
passing the
Exactly.
baton in a
Yeah,
way.
exactly. And
Mm,
and that passing of knowledge and information made our relationships very different, because we had to interact and talk to each other and ask
mm,
questions. And now it's like there is that need is taken away in a relationship now, because you can Google something when you want information. You don't have
yeah,
to go to someone to ask about the
it's
information
true.
or to get the knowledge. So it's
Yeah,
very different today, and that also probably isolates us from certain
yeah. And
relationships.
I think it is interesting because it doesn't always have to be bad. The change. Um, I mean, we do see more isolation nowadays, but there's also like more knowledge and more.
Yeah.
It's easier to be independent. There's ways to connect to people. It's just like getting introduced to the Reniverse was like such an amazing thing for me, and it's opened up so many doors for me as well. So in that sense, the online community and the online uh, world that's been created it can be a powerful thing if it's coming from a good place.
Well,
um
I think that's a general thing, in for any subject we talk about is always what people do of it. So I think because mankind has a tendency to not always go in a very positive direction,
mm,
and that's also a lot of what Ren talks about in some of his songs, about the greed and the pride and the power, and I think it's always the people who create deviancy in things, because
mm,
actually if we can use every technology we have, and every all of the power and the knowledge that we have today, and use it for good. But it's not
mm,
always the case. If we would always
yeah,
always use everything in a positive way and for the greater good, I think we would live in a very different world.
yeah. And look, and that could be said about a lot of things in a lot of eras, and it is something uh that's interesting about like humankind. I guess we're getting deep here, but it's all good. I enjoy it.
That's the whole point of
uh
my
this
podcast.
Okay, nice. No, no, like this is the kind of conversations that I love. So, I mean, like if we look at progress throughout history, like there's always a tendency towards war and conflict. I mean, all like so many scientific advancements came from the Second World War.
Yeah.
And it's like that's insane to think about. Like our civilization is built of this destruction and this this horrible thing, you know. And
Mm.
it's like you got to ask yourself, like, what's the quality of the foundation we've built here? Like, what's
Yeah.
the where is this heading? Like is yeah, if it's just interesting things to think about. Like I don't have the answers. I don't have
Oh yeah.
like I'll leave that to the philosophers, you know.
Yeah.
But I just thought about it the other day, and I think it was while I was reacting to a Ren video that these like questions started coming up, because this is also this type of topics that he kind of puts in your face and he makes you think
Yes.
about it, you know. And that's a cool thing about his music as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mm,
think so too, because it's a very direct way, with a lot of clever wordplay and great
mm,
writing. But then it's a very, very direct way of talking about topics that are not really widespread in music today. I think there are, different artists talking about, mental health and societal issues, and especially in rap, there's a lot. There's always been, the questions arising about societal issues, and but he's very confronting in his lyrics about some topics, and I think it's really interesting because it makes people think, and that's what we need. It's for people to take a step back and think about, what is
yeah,
happening and what each of us can do and what we can do together to change things, or to not always to change, because I think change isn't always needed, but to advance things in a positive into positive light. And I
yeah,
think sometimes it's the positive that is left out in in
yeah,
um in evolution.
yeah. And I think we need to accept that change as a part of life, because you know, we
Mm.
don't want to become people who are like, oh, these darn kids don't know what they had, and like we we want to keep an open mind to the changes that's happening, and see like where it can be good, because it is like this is just a silly example maybe, but let's take Gen Z for instance. um and like I'm a millennial, so, and I'm sure you are too.
Oh yeah.
So oh yeah. Yeah, millennials.
Yay.
um we're still young, we're still young.
Oh yes, I
We're
feel
still relevant.
young.
Yeah. No, you but like something I'm, because my little sister is Gen Z, and something I've noticed about her and her friend group is they adapt to things very easily, you know.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's like to like situations and events, and I don't know if this is just specific to them, but I've realized that there is a certain um like quick on your feetness to the Gen
Yeah.
Z generation, which is maybe a result of like constantly being on phones, or like having um, new information. They're so used to uh, like jumping from topic, you know, like on
Yeah.
your phone, or like, I mean, like we
I,
all scroll through our phones, but there
but
is like
I
something that's happening.
yeah, I also think it's maybe because the evolution of technology is going at an extremely high rate, because when we grew up in the 90s, in that time, I think I would say up to the first iPhone, maybe. So beginning
Mm,
of the 2000s, I think we had evolution in technology, and new things were, brought up, and we discovered, the internet, and then different, I don't know, something as stupid as, flat screen TVs and stuff, but it wasn't going as fast as it is now, because now you have, like, from one year to the next, you have a completely different technology that is always revolutionizing the world. And we only had huge revolutions in technology maybe every 4 or 5 years. So we had, like, the time that was that we had to adapt to something new was much longer. So we took that time, and we were adapting slowly to new technology. But now I think with, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they really have to adapt from one year to the next to something that is completely
yeah.
revolutionizing everything. It's like AI. I mean, AI has been, people think, because we've been talking about AI a lot in the past, like 2, 3 years since ChatGPT, where
Mm.
people suddenly are extremely aware of AI, and it's talked about everywhere, but it's been there for years. I mean, AI
Mm.
has been like used on the on websites and on the internet and in software for years and years and years. It's only it wasn't as in our face as it is now.
Yeah.
And we didn't
It
have,
wasn't a widely discussed topic as it
yeah,
is
and we
now.
didn't
Yeah.
have someone like Elon Musk, 10 years ago to go like,
Mm.
you know. So it's like, it's really, I think that is maybe also part of why the new generations adapt so quickly and so well to new
Mm.
stuff, because they're used to it, everything going very fast, and we didn't have
And
that.
yeah, and we should also remember that our generation, the millennials specifically, we're the last generation to experience life before the internet was available to everyone,
Oh yeah.
and widespread. Like, so growing up in the 90s, like, you still, and look, kids still go out and play, kids still ride their bikes, but there is definitely, um I saw like a scale of like things that were important to us like 10 years ago, and then the years go on, and the things, like, the percentages change,
Yeah.
or like the time spent on things change. And
Yeah.
when phones came in, and like specifically like smartphones came
Yeah.
in, it just went, like, family went down, friends went down, and just screen time just shot up. So like everyone's screen time is way more than their family time and their
Yeah.
friends time. And I think
Yeah.
growing up in the 90s, you still had that Steven Spielberg-esque, like,
Oh
riding
yeah.
bikes through
Of
the suburbs,
Yeah.
and like sleeping over at friends' house, and like playing outside, and like all these things
Oh
kids are
yeah.
supposed to do was very, very popular still. And we're the last generation before the internet like really kicked in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a special, because we've experienced that transition now. So we are like the in between. We're like the missing link almost.
It's just the balance between both, I think, is important. And we have experienced, I experienced great adventures when I was a kid, going to the forest with my friends and,
Mhm.
building stuff. And it's like, it's a different sense of adventure than just sitting on the couch next to your friend with a phone, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just to add on to that point, I mean, I grew up, like I said, on a farm, on a guest farm, and I was my sister at the time, my older sister, she was already in boarding school in South Africa. So
Yeah.
I was for big parts alone, um, and didn't have like friends on the farm. So I had to kind of, sorry, to entertain myself,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of things. I had like action figures that I would play with, or
Yeah.
and I am someone who gets very hyper fixated, or very from an early age. Like, I would
Yeah.
like get into a zone, and like um, create. I would create like these stories and these scenarios and these things with these action figures, and I would go outside, and because it was like a deserty kind of farm, or like a
Okay.
rocky desert,
Yeah.
so there was like a lot of cool like landscapes that I could like kind of go
Use.
to and
Yeah.
explore and
Yeah.
use. And I've realized like that like me sitting in my room and playing with these action figures just kind of evolved into me sitting in my room playing with my guitar. It's like the same
Yeah.
energy, the
Yeah.
same. And if I didn't have that, maybe I wouldn't be playing music today. Like
Well,
maybe.
yeah, I was going to ask you how, when that kicked in, and how, that evolved to you, becoming an independent artist. When did it
Mm.
start with the music? Was it something in your family, or?
So my there are a few musicians in my family. My grandfather played piano. My grandmother sang. But I don't think it was uh, like, we don't have on my mother's side, there wasn't like any professional musicians. Not that I know of. I might be wrong. It's very bad. But on my dad's side, my grandfather was a professional musician, and my dad also plays music. So yeah, I was exposed to it. There was a lot of like playing guitar around the campfire kind of thing. Um, I never played until I was 16 years old. um,
Oh,
and yeah, like I remember I actually remember the day we were in our excuse me, our apartment in Stellenbosch, which is close to Cape Town, and my dad was playing the song "Horse with No Name" by
yeah,
America,
yeah,
and it's just like two chords, you know.
yeah.
And there was another guitar lying there, so I picked it up and I started playing, just like mimicking what he's doing, and he was like, "You actually have some rhythm there, and like you're learning this pretty fast." And then the next day, he bought me like a very nice acoustic guitar, and it was just like, "There you go, now continue," you know. And I
No,
just couldn't put the thing down. So it was definitely like, I think at that age I was 16 and I wasn't really uh focused in school. I couldn't like get my grades up. Like I was struggling to focus on something, you know.
mhm.
And I probably ADD. Never been diagnosed, but it's probably ADHD. And
Yeah,
when I
okay.
got this guitar, I was like hyper fixated on it. I was
Yeah.
like playing every single day. I would play those same two chords just like for 10 hours straight, you know. And then I learned three more chords and I couldn't stop playing them. I was like, oh wow. And it's like literally when I learned like two chords, I was asking kids in the school if they want to start a band already, you know. Like even though I could only play two chords, it was just like I was so excited to be making music,
Yeah, yeah.
um because I've always loved music. I've always like loved listening to music, as everyone does. But yeah, then from that it kind of just I think when I was 17 or 18, no, when I was 17, I joined like a metal band. uh
Oh, yeah.
because so like then the metal started, the rebel started kicking in, and I got my
Yeah,
first electric guitar, and I was like, oh, if you turn the distortion up, it sounds really cool, you know. And
yeah.
if you drop this string to a D, you can like make really really heavy sounds, you know. And
What
you
what
don't
type
need
what
to.
type of metal did you play?
So it's, I say it's metal, but it's more like hardcore, screamo
Okay.
music,
Yeah.
you know. So it was like a lot of zeros and ones. If for any guitarists who out there, they know what I'm talking about. It's just like it's more about the rhythm and like the breakdowns, and then
Yeah.
the vocals being like
Yeah.
very intense, but then also very high pitched,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, like nice sounding pop vocals in between. So yeah, but it was horrible. Like I didn't play it very well, and the band was terrible. But you know, it's like an important part of the experience is to have that first band and to be terrible, but to have the delusion of thinking you sound good. You know,
Oh,
because if you
yeah.
don't have,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're not delusional about that, you're gonna stop. You're gonna be like, I sound terrible, so why should I continue? But like
Yeah, of course.
you almost need to be a little bit like I don't know what the word is, but it's delusional. Like you have to be a little
But
bit.
I
Uh,
also think it's like the band adventure versus just, being an individual musician and singer maybe
mm,
is like the camaraderie you have in a band
mm,
is like no other. Because it's
definitely.
like you found your people. And
Yeah.
even if there are fights and conflicts going on in the bands, um
Mm,
it's like you really have this connection, and through the music, this connection
mm,
that you feel at the moment you're never going to have with anyone else. It's like, wow, this is
definitely.
amazing. And when you play together, even if it's bad, this flow of energy between the people in the band
Mm,
is amazing. So
mm,
I think that's really also all of the relational things going on and emotional things going
yeah.
on in the band that don't always have to do only with the music, but it's just like this
Hmm.
connection between people is so strong, and
Yeah,
that's
and it's
so
true because like, sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah. Go
but
on.
it's so true what you're saying because like in my school at the time, I none of my friends were playing music. No one in my grade was playing music really. Like there was like one guy, but we had different tastes in music.
Yeah.
So then I like someone from another school reached out uh, and asked if I want to be in their band. You know, I didn't know this guy, and I did like an audition for him. He was like younger than me, and I auditioned to be in his band. You know, it's so
That's
weird,
great.
but it was cool. And then I started like hanging out with him and his friends, and started realizing, oh, like because at that age you don't know how vast like everyone is. I thought like, okay, the people at my school, that's like how diverse the world is, you know,
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
that's what I'm exposed to.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then I discovered, oh, there's all these people who are just as weird as I am, and then it
Yeah.
became a thing of like every weekend I would go to their town and sleep over, and we would just jam the whole day
Yeah.
and laugh and
Yeah.
make jokes. It was less about the music and more about just like you said, the camaraderie and finding your club or
Yeah. Your people,
your
yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
your village basically. so
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's no, it's definitely like I'm glad I had that experience early on, because like I've had a few other band experiences as well, and I as I grew as a musician I started realizing that um I might be a bit hard to work with, just because like
In what in what sense?
um well, I don't know if it's just the people that I found myself with, but I always find my work ethic is way beyond like people that I usually work with. So I'm constantly like working on stuff, and
Yeah.
like I was in a band, and I won't say any names, but I was in a band for a while, and we were working on an album. We started working on it in 2018. We started writing on it, and I think we got like 6 songs down, and like we were recording, and next thing I knew, like, okay, 2 years have passed, and we're still working on this album. In that time I've already put out 2 albums of my own, 12 songs each, and I was like, something's not adding up here. Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's so I just decided to kind of carry on my own. But
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to being in a band again. There are certain, like, if I'm being honest, like there was certain things from being, especially like in the rock and roll scene, which I
Mm.
was in later. Like there was just like certain lifestyle bad habits that I picked up that I had to kick. So
Yeah.
like if I do a band again, it would have to be something very wholesome, and people would need to be on the same mindset as me, because
Yeah.
like there
Yeah.
are like certain triggers and things that the music industry now has for me. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like now it's like I can find beauty in any kind of music, just because also I'm a producer, so I
Yeah.
record music, and I've produced different artists over the years. So
Yeah.
it's also that side of things is very interesting to me. So it's always cool for me to hear something new that's like a new genre or
Yeah.
an interesting flavor, because I'm like,
Yeah,
ooh,
of
like
course.
how did they do that sound, or like how did
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
there's just so much more to play with now,
Yeah, of
as
course.
I'm older.
And
So
just so we because I wanted to get into the the whole loves healing and Ren and everything, but
mm,
like how, because I saw when I saw the video, and then I kind of tried to find a little bit I find out a bit more about you. I was like, how come this guy did that before he was a fan? And because it
mm,
seems kind of upside down, when you look at the
mm,
story, it's like, okay,
mm.
because this is something that maybe a hardcore fan would really do, and so how come it happened this way around, and that you're that you came to know about him, and what's the story?
Okay, so story time. Let's go.
Yeah.
um, Basically, in 2023, um, I in 2023 I quit drinking and I quit drugs, because
Yeah.
I was an addict. Well, there's something I had to accept about myself. It was like, okay, I'm an addict,
Mm.
and I need to stop this behavior. And there was a few traumatic events that happened that made me, it was like the universe slapping me in the face continuously, and I
Yeah, yeah,
finally listened,
yeah.
and initially I kind of I think I was about to quit music, because I've attached this thing like using drugs and drinking and
Mhm.
this lifestyle with music because I was in a rock and roll band, and
Yeah.
that's where those habits kind of came from.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, maybe music isn't for me. And at the time, I was like, because these events happened to me, these like traumatic things, um, I kind of saw it as like the universe speaking to me, you know,
Mm.
and giving me signals. So I was like, okay, I'm open to signals. I'm gonna surrender myself in a way, you know, to
Mhm.
signals from the universe. So um, basically, then I decided, okay, I'm gonna quit music, and I'm gonna quit this lifestyle, and I'm just gonna focus on my career in film, you know. And then when I made that decision, a week later, I got a call from a friend in the US, uh, and he was like, "Hey, dude, do you want to join me and some people for a festival? Do you want to come play guitar for us in a festival in the States?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Okay, signals are coming in." You know, it's like, no, no,
Yeah,
no, you're
yeah,
not done with music. You're just done with the bad stuff. Like
yeah,
music is not done with you, buddy.
yeah, yeah,
So I was like, okay, I'm listening. I'm like, hell yeah, man. Like I'll join for that. And it's also like this group was a they're from like the Hare Krishna
yeah,
community. So I don't know if you're aware or
yeah,
like
yeah,
know anything about the Hare Krishnas, but so it's very wholesome.
yeah.
It's gonna be no drugs and
No.
alcohol at this festival. You know, it's like this is exactly what I needed actually.
Yeah, yeah.
So so I went over and I played, and we went to El Paso, we went to Philadelphia, we went to Mexico as well.
Wow.
We went to New York. It was like the first time I was in New York, and well, the first time I was in the United States, but like I've wanted to see New York for so long, and I got to go there, you know, and walk around at night and see Times Square, and it was like jumping into your television, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
Not so cool. And anyway, so I kept like listening for signals, and then like new music started coming to me, just like even just as I was traveling the states, like I started like coming up with songs in my head or just words. And then when I got home, I think I wrote like 6 or 7 songs, you know, in like a
Wow.
week. And I was like, okay, it's this something's happening. and
Yeah.
and the next year I started recording these songs, and I think it was January of 2024. I
Mm.
recorded like 16 songs. um and I was like, okay, I need to do this right this time, you know. I want to be a musician. Like I've made this decision now. I want to be a musician, and I need to find a way to make this work. So I decided to kind of take my songs and build little reels around them, where I'm like, you know, those things where like you're talking and then you're talking back to yourself, and it's
Yeah,
like
I saw
it's
some
just
of the
like,
videos you did like that. I
okay,
thought
cool.
it was very funny.
Yeah. So well, I mean, it's and this is the thing, like I hadn't been making that content because I was like, oh, I need a good camera and I need a good microphone and this and this, and
Mm.
it's like, dude, you have a phone, like just film it on the phone, just start somewhere. And this is the biggest tip that if any independent musicians are listening that I can give is just start.
Yeah,
And the first reel is probably going to be terrible, the first video is probably going to be terrible, and that's okay.
yeah,
That's where you learn the most, you know. If you're
yeah,
going
yeah,
to wait for yourself to be perfect, it's not gonna happen, you know.
yeah.
Like you gotta make those mistakes, you gotta just put stuff out, you know. So
Mhm.
that's what I did. Like I started making posting once or twice a day, you know, these like reels, and it wouldn't just be skits, it's like different like stuff from my music.
Mhm.
And then I started releasing the music, and then uh like my the first song I released was got like a few hundred streams, and then the second song I released got like next to nothing streams, and I was like, okay, well, this isn't working. And then the third song I released got onto like a nice playlist or something, and it got like over 1,000 streams in the first week, which
Yeah,
was at the time like, so like in this is Spotify specifically. So
yeah,
on Spotify, if you don't have more than 1,000 streams, it doesn't show you the number.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and I was like, oh, I'm so excited, you know. And
yeah,
because that happened, the algorithm kicked in for the previous song, and
yeah,
that started blowing up. And I saw that as another sign, you know. And it's like, okay, keep doing what you're doing, like, because I was starting to lose like faith in this
yeah.
process, you know. But it's like, no, 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 just keep doing what you're doing. And I released a song called "She's Amazing," and then a YouTuber called Walter Ruski. I don't know if you're familiar with Walter's channel, um, but he's a reactor. He made like a whole reaction video on that song.
Oh, cool.
That like I had like a little lyric video on YouTube. I was releasing all these reels that I was making. Actually, for I was making the reels for TikTok and Instagram, but I was just putting it on YouTube just to have it there, just
Yeah,
as like
yeah,
a catalog. So I wasn't
yeah, yeah,
planning on making YouTube a big thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but then so Walter saw this and he did a reaction video, and I was like, okay, this is the universe really telling me
Oh,
like
yeah,
you're
sure.
on the right path.
Yeah.
And then Walter was actually the one, because he started like telling his subscribers to go and follow me, because at the time I had 52 subscribers, and it was
Yeah.
like, this is offensive to good music, Walter was saying. And he's like, please guys, just go subscribe to this guy and just support him, like his music is sick. And I was just like, wow man, this dude is like going out of his way to get people to follow me. That's like so amazing. And so then what happened was Walter made a little short, and he's like, at the time, he still couldn't pronounce my name, so he was like, Wynand. Uh, I have a challenge for you. I want you to go check out this artist Ren, something like this. I'm paraphrasing, but I want you to go look at the video Hi Ren, film yourself watching it, and post it on YouTube and see what happens. Like literally, I was like,
Okay.
okay, the universe is telling me to do something. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this. And I filmed myself watching Hi Ren, and I posted it, and all of a sudden my so there was like, I think 40 people or something that came from Walter's channel to subscribe to my channel, but then it went to like I was like on 80, and then it was like 250 the next day. I was like, okay. The next day it was like 500, and I was like, whoa, like what's happening? And it's
Mm,
all like, now this video has like 2,000 views or something, and I'm like,
mm.
oh, reactions. Okay, interesting. And people like, the Renegades, like they're like, oh, you should react to this next. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
if they find someone who doesn't know Ren and who like related to the music and who had a positive thing to say about the music,
Mhm.
they're just gonna tell you what to react to next. And I got so many suggestions on this video. The next one I did was the Tales of Jenny and Screech,
Yeah.
which was like that long one,
Yeah.
where they put all three videos
Yeah.
together. And then that also started like getting more traction, and I got so many suggestions that I didn't really and like I'm not used to this kind of attention and people like um like telling me to do stuff. So
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, okay, how do I choose the next one? So I made this like roulette wheel,
Yeah. Yeah.
um
That's
where
such a
and
good
I just added
idea.
like I just added
Yeah.
all the suggestions in there, and I call it the Renlet wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started spinning this wheel and just reacting to different Ren videos, and it
Yeah.
just kept growing and growing and growing, to the point where I got, like YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours to
Yeah.
monetize your channel.
Yeah.
And within like 2 weeks, I reached that goal, and like I've been looking for a way to support my music and to be a full-time musician for so long, and now all of a sudden this avenue is opened up, and
Yeah.
it's literally because of Ren and his fan base, and
Yeah.
and I just felt so grateful. And then obviously like the more I react to Ren's videos, the more his story starts coming out in the comments, because I'm
Yeah.
reading all the comments and I'm replying, and now I'm hearing about Lyme disease, and I'm hearing he's been sick for so long. And then someone in the comments said like, he had another flare up and he had to undergo another set of treatments in Canada. So yeah, I just wanted to show some gratitude.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it was almost like kind of out of my hands, because um I also just had the idea of like, what if, like, all the renegades and everyone, that's because everyone's so like engaging on his music, and they're
Oh, yeah.
so that they want to do something for him, and it's very clear in the comments that people want to show some love. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, let me get them to sing um the chorus with me, and at first it was just going to be like audio, but then I was like, how are they going to record the audio? They might as well take a video of themselves recording the audio,
Yeah.
and then send that in. So it's just like the idea kind of just grew
Yeah.
organically.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like I sat down. I was like, I'm gonna make a song for Ren. I'm gonna get all the Renegades to sing on it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just it
It
was a lot of
morphed
steps that
into that.
it
Yeah.
morphed into that. Then it happened. Like I posted the video. Literally, I think a day or two later, he commented and he was like,
Yeah.
"Wow, man, this made me cry. Thank you so much, and thanks for all the messages." I never thought I was gonna make so many people cry, and I thought that's gonna be like my thing, is to make people. But it's a good cry. Like it's a very necessary cry. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people are experiencing, and that's also usually the reactions that mean the most. It's
Yeah.
because like it just you can see that this, like, obviously I wrote this for Ren and I wanted him to feel good, but it's become something where, people are saying, uh it's giving them hope and stuff, so
Yeah.
for humanity, and which is crazy, but not crazy, but it's like crazy for me to think that I was part of making that,
Yeah, of
and
course.
that's always been like a goal of mine, is to spread uh love and hope through music.
Yeah. But I
Mhm.
I think, yeah, the fact that you did this song with the Renegades, and it also opened opened you up to, different avenues of what you can do with your music, because it's not only
Mm.
just you with your own songs, but you can also create some things that are on a wider scale, and much more global. And I don't know if you maybe have some collaborations coming up with other artists, or if you're open to that.
I'm definitely open to it. I haven't. I'm so like I said, I'm hard to work with. That I'm also like very picky of like who I work with. But I definitely want to collaborate more, because like if I've learned anything from this song and also from Ren, is that working with other people really like just expands your horizon, and
Yeah.
it like makes a song better, because for like if you're working with a good musician, like they see things that you can't see, and they hear things that you can't hear, because it's like they're experiencing life through their filter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah, it just makes the music better. It makes the, like, if I'm going to the business side, it makes the marketing better, because it's going to two different fan bases,
Yeah.
so it's better for everyone. Like
Yeah.
both people are exposing their fans to the other artists' music.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's just collaboration is the way to go. And I do want to collaborate, but I'm waiting for the right moment and the right person. At the moment, I still have like a lot of music of my own that I'm releasing.
Yeah.
So, but they're all recorded and done. So I'm happy to start working on new stuff, and I'd love to work with like some really good rappers, because I've tried rap myself. I can't do the fast stuff. Like I can, like, I think high rain is like the top speed I can. I mean, Love's Healing is like the top speed that I can reach. So so yeah, I'd love to work with some rappers who have like worked on it for a long time, and who are really passionate about
Yeah.
um, rap.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. And so, if you, for all of the Renegades watching, or if Ren
mm.
sees this, what would you have to say?
Um, wow, putting me on the spot here. Uh, well, first, I mean, I guess first of all, just thank you. Uh, I want to say thank you to the Renegades for always being so lovely and supportive, and they've really made um they've made me believe that I can actually be a YouTuber, which is something I've actually wanted to do, but uh, I've never really found my niche, and
Yeah.
they've made me realize that, oh, I actually really like reacting to things, and to talk about music, and to discover new music. So thank you so much, to all the Renegades, for all your amazing support. To Ren, I just say, like, uh, love's healing. Sending
Mm.
you some love. That's all I can say. Like the man has given. like indirectly given me so much, and um, I'm super grateful. I'm just so grateful for his music and for his willingness to cooperate with the reaction community, and just like for being the person he is, and this like an inspiration essentially. Like a lot of the new music that I'm writing is drawing a lot of inspiration from Ren, and even like videos that I'm thinking of is like, ooh, I don't have to go big budget, I don't have to get like the best camera, like I can just make simple things with a friend and a phone, you know. You can still put some work into it, you can still like make it interesting, and like that's what Ren does really well. It's like it's not just him on his phone, it's like um him driving with his buddy and uh with a phone, and or like him doing a long one take on a
Yeah.
phone. So it's yeah, you can still make it interesting. And I think another way that Ren really inspires me, or like just to get going and to start doing stuff, is like he is so sick, um, and so ill and struggles with all this pain, but he still makes the art. He still makes
Yeah.
time for the art, and he
Yeah.
still, he still wants to create that community and awareness for the stuff that he's going through, and which has also been such a pinnacle point of where people relate to him is
Hmm.
that even though it's a very specific illness, he he sings and raps about it in a way that so many people can relate to, and it's also something in the messages. There was a guy who said, like, he had a brain injury as a
Oh
result
yeah.
of an accident,
Yeah.
and it's like Ren found a way to put his experience into words,
Hmm.
and that's like always such an amazing, like, any reaction that I watch to Love's Healing, that's always the part where people are like, "Wow, man, yeah!"
Yeah.
Like that gets to the core of why Ren is the 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 kind of big deal that he is to so many
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It
yeah,
is. It's been amazing to see how the this spark of inspiration, where he is the origin of, just grows from one person to the other, and every person I meet and I talk to is just so inspirational too. And I think, passing that flame on is just so important because it brings everyone together.
rising tide.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. I was really, really happy you did this with me. And thank you so much for being on this episode and for talking so candidly about your life. That is really, really nice to hear and to learn more about you as a person and as a musician.
It was only my pleasure. It was lovely to get to know you too, and I really enjoyed this. I think the conversations, yeah, you have something good going here. So just keep doing what you're doing,
Ah,
please.
thank you. Thank you. That's really nice. Well, see you soon then.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye.